Namaste. A very warm welcome to all the participants in today's webinar. A special welcome to speaker Shri Krishnaphani Kesiraju ji for making the time to be with us here today. Before we introduce our speaker, I hand over to Krishnaphani ji a little information for those who were not here earlier and have joined us today. Rtambhara Wellness is a collective of like-minded individuals that look at wellness in a holistic way, not just the body, but the mind as well, and all through the practice and knowledge that comes from our ancient Indian scriptures and heritage. We conduct corporate programs and retreats for wellness that looks at personal transformation. The details are available on website rtambharawellness.com. If you would like to be a part of our community, please post your contact details, cell number, email ID, and we will add you to our groups. I may now request our Chief of Faculty, Mrs. Beena Mirchandani, to introduce our speaker for today. Over to you, Beena ji.
Thank you so much, Rashmi. It's my absolute pleasure and privilege to introduce Shri Krishnaphani Kesiraju to you all. He's been my spiritual mentor and guide for several years now. In fact, he is my encyclopedia for understanding and furthering my knowledge on any aspect of our Indian scriptures. Not just me alone, but many of us here. Thank you for that, Krishnaphani ji. Driving the spiritual direction at Rtambhara and modernizing ancient scriptures to make them contextual to today's living, Krishnaphani Kesiraju is the program director and chief faculty at Rtambhara. He has 40 years of experience in industry and academia. Study and research in ancient Indian philosophical and spiritual literature are his passion. He's a keen student of Vedanta, Theosophy, and Jiddu Krishnamurti's teachings. He is instrumental in creating and curating the course content of Rtambhara. In today's session, we will have a talk for about 45 to 50 minutes, followed by a Q&A. Feel free to post your questions on the chat function, and Shri Krishnaphani ji will answer your questions after the talk. So let's get on with today's session and hear more from Shri Krishnaphani ji about the broken compass and the lost rudder. Over to you, Krishnaphani ji.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Beena ji. Are you able to hear me clearly?
Yes. Yes.
Good. Thank you. I would like to thank all the participants who have joined, and I'm happy to see all old friends and participants who have been there earlier also in our physical sessions. Now, this topic which I have chosen for today is a kind of a symbolic connotation to it. You know, the allegory related to the sea and the ocean and the journey across it. These symbols are as old as humanity. The awe-inspiring vision of an ocean, which arises in all of us, is something which one needs to actually experience it, because it is something indescribable. Now, this allegory has found a place in all religions, all cultures across the world. We talk in terms of the ocean of becoming or ocean of life. The ocean is a symbol of in terms of both vastness and depth of life. And it is very daunting. You know, a journey across the sea is something which is very daunting, and it was always considered as a great achievement or a very courageous endeavor to go on to the high seas and cross the ocean. As I said, this symbology is something which is, very naturally it came into the language and literature and culture. the symbol of the ocean as life itself, and the person who is making a journey in a small boat is compared to the self. The individual is undertaking a journey across the ocean of life. Now, generally, when we talk about a journey across the sea, the two most important things that are required are a compass to show you the direction and the rudder with which you control the movement of the boat in the direction in which you want to proceed. So, the compass is a very useful instrument. It shows you the general direction in which you are moving, or it gives you which direction is in which orientation it is. There is an English adage about the broken moral compass. The compass has a connotation with regard to morality and ethics, which guide a person in his journey of life. Usually, the four cardinal directions of a compass are represented by four qualities, while there are a large number of virtues and qualities and practices which are talked about, but generally the overall picture reveals that these four directions are indicated by what is called as integrity, forgiveness, compassion, and responsibility. So this is a moral compass which is guiding you and which is telling you in what direction one needs to go. It's not that these virtues or these qualities are isolated. It's only an allegorical comparison. It's a kind of a symbolic representation of the four great virtues which I've just mentioned: integrity, forgiveness, compassion, and responsibility. Then there is actually a moral compass already within each one of us. It is already inbuilt. This compass is inbuilt because even a little amount of sensitivity on our part very clearly tells us what is right and what is wrong. Even a small child is able to make out. One need not give a very elaborate explanation or reasoning or description about what is right or what is wrong. We have a moral compass. And that moral compass keeps telling you whether you are going astray or whether you are going on the right path. Now, see, apart from this symbolism of the moral compass, almost all cultures across the world have what is called as the golden precept or the golden rule, which says that you would not do to others what you would not like others do to you, isn't it? Or maybe you can put it in a positive way also and say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This is another guiding principle, because when we are living in a society where relationship is the most important thing, what happens is that we expect mutual respect, mutual cooperation, mutual understanding, and a tacit agreement that we would not harm each other, we would not hurt each other in any manner whatsoever. That it is frequently violated is a different matter. That's why the compass is said to be broken. Why is it we call it as the broken moral compass? Is because we don't adhere to this principle, which we are supposed to. And when it comes to myself, I would like everybody to act in a square manner, act in a transparent manner and all. But I won't reciprocate and I would like to do the same, which is a kind of a dichotomy in oneself, which indicates that somewhere this compass is not working properly. It needs to be fixed. There's something wrong with it. So this has been the thing all throughout. Even in the Mahabharata, Vyasa very clearly says this. Shruyatam dharma sarvasvam shrutva chaivavadharyatam. Kindly listen to this. The complete definition of dharma. There are not so many aspects of dharma. There is only one major aspect, which is dharma sarvasvam, which is everything about dharma. And he said, having heard it, hold it in your mind, hold it in your consciousness. And what does it say? Atmanah pratikulani paresham na samachare. What you feel is not good to you, do not do that to others. So that's the golden precept which we talk about. And on the other hand, on a positive note, this appears to be negative in the sense saying that what you don't like others to do to you, you don't do to others appears to be negative in one respect. But there is a positive aspect of also. When again they say that what is given in 1,000,000 books can be put in one simple form of what is the dharma of a human being. He says, Paropakara punyaya papaya parapidana. Paropakara. That means doing good to others is the only beneficent, is the only positive thing which leads to goodness and which leads to harmony and peace. And the exact opposite of it is papa. Loosely translated, it can be said to be sin, but sin not in the religious sense of it, but something which is an action which is accruing something bad to yourself and bad to the humanity at large. That means something which is undesirable. That is what is called as papa. Punya is something which is very much desirable because it is progressive in nature and helps everybody. So this principle is found across religions and cultures, as I mentioned. Now, an important aspect which I would like to bring forth by extending this symbolism of a compass. Actually, this compass represents our conscience. The compass is an instrument which can be said to represent our conscience. Our conscience is that sense or the indicator of what is right and what is wrong. Actually, it is sometimes it is said to be a negative indicator because we use the term the prick of consciousness. The moment you are doing something wrong, it pricks you and says that this is not the right thing to do. You are doing something which is undesirable, which is not right. So both it prevents you from doing it and it also cautions you when you are going astray. So in a way, the compass represents one's own conscience. Generally, what happens is as we grow, most of us seem to have stifled the voice of this conscience, if not actually killing our own conscience. We do go to the extent of keeping it totally dormant, totally stifled, tied up, not popping up every time. because we are so used to doing things which we are not supposed to do, that the voice becomes more and more feeble, and it stops responding, or it stops working. It stops giving those indications or signals, or cautioning somebody when he is going astray. Now, and also, why it is, why I am equating it to conscience is that it helps one determine the course of one's life's journey and guides one to keep moving in the right direction. So the compass represents our conscience, and unless we come to a stage where we have become totally insensitive, or become so callous that we do not, we stop heeding to these, the inner voice, which is prompting you and telling you what is right and what is wrong. So this is one symbolic aspect of the compass being considered as our conscience. Now, when it comes to the rudder is another instrument which is to be constantly used to keep the course of the boat as desired and in the proper direction. Generally they say that boats without rudders lose their ability to steer and often end up on the rocks or at the bottom of the sea. So either you hit a rock, or you simply sink to the bottom of the ocean. So having a rudder is a matter of it makes all the difference between life and death, and it is something which is to be used on a daily basis. It's something which we need to have it constantly with us, and I would consider the rudder as our consciousness, as opposed to the compass, which I am calling it as representing our conscience. Now, the consciousness is the positive presence of an immutable principle in us. This is something which we need to understand very carefully. It is actually quite evident in all respects to us. Our ability to move, our ability to think, our ability to do action, all this indicates that there is life. Now, what is this life principle? This life principle is that intangible principle which has occupied a material body. A body made of matter is occupied by an invisible, intangible principle, which we are calling it as life. Now, the fundamental difference between consciousness and life is very simple in the sense, consciousness is something which is all-pervading. When that consciousness acts through an instrument, like the human body or any other being for that matter, then that principle of consciousness operating through a limited entity, an embodied entity, then we call it as life. So it can be recognized very easily. See, I am the same person 50 years back or 60 years back when I was a child. And now I am the same person, isn't it? But when you see through the whole journey, everything has changed around me. My height, my weight, my body appearance, my, everything about me has changed. But I do not consider that the person I was when I was 5 years old and the person now I am are two different entities, isn't it? So there is a principle. There is an eternal, immutable principle which is ever present. In fact, this presence of the same principle which has been throughout my life, we call this as our spiritual identity. Am I the name? Am I the form? Am I my relationships or my qualifications or the roles which I play in life? Am I that, or am I something much more than all that? That's the reason why we come to this spiritual identity only through negation. Only through negation, in the sense that I am not the body. I am not the mind. I am not my emotions. I am not my thoughts. I am not my relationships. I am none of these things. But yet there is that immutable principle in me, which is not so easily identifiable, but vaguely recognizable by everybody. Now, this vaguely recognizable entity, can it become a living principle in me? Can it become the most important entity? Because everything else is changing. So I cannot hold on to anything which is changing, which is elusive, which is very uncertain, which is mutable in nature. I cannot hold on to any of those things. So if at all, if I have to hold on to something, the rudder, the most important instrument or equipment for the boat, is to hold on to my spiritual identity. So the more I recognize the presence of this identity, this entity, the more firmly I am in control of the whole of my life. Because as I said, I am supposed to live every minute, every second of my life with this principle. The absence of this principle is resulting in the death of the body. And I see death around me constantly. And I cannot escape it. So if I recognize this principle and hold on to it, then it makes all the difference in one's life. Unfortunately, it happens the other way around. We hold on to everything that is changeable and mutable, everything that is uncertain, everything that is elusive, everything which is perishable, and somehow manage our life thinking that I can get away with it. But the fact of the matter is, none of these things really matter, and I can do whatever I may do, I cannot hold on to any of these things. So this principle has to be understood. And it should become as tangible as any other material thing around us. Then what happens is, then you see a tremendous difference in the whole perception of life. You perceive life in a totally different manner altogether. And you would not do anything which would be in your own harm, which is going to create harm for yourself. It's going to hurt me. So as I said, the identity has to be, there has to be a quantum shift in that identity. I am reminded of the Nirvana Shatkam. See, the beauty of it, Adi Shankara, when he was hardly 12 years old, he went in search of his guru, Govindapada, on the banks of Narmada. The first question asked by the Guru was, "Who are you?" And the beautiful answer he gave, the Guru was so delighted when he said, "Mano buddhya hankara chittaninaham chidananda rupa shivoham shivo." He says, "I am not this mind. I am not this limited consciousness. I am not this intellect. I am not this faculty of discrimination. I am not the ego. I am none of these things. I am that eternal principle which is ever auspicious, which is of the nature of supreme goodness." That's the meaning of Shiva. The meaning of Shiva is something which is eternally auspicious, which is supreme goodness. I am that blissful consciousness pervading in that ever-present Shiva. You see the approach to life, approach to one's own identity. When the boy was asked, "Who are you?" he could have given a simple response saying that I am so-and-so. I come from Kerala. This is my address. My late father was so-and-so. My mother is still there. She is in her village called Kaladi. He could have given a very mundane reply to all these things. But he knew that he is approaching a guru. The disciple has to be a deserving candidate for acceptance by the Guru. That is the most important thing. So the whole purpose is using this symbology of a compass and a rudder is to navigate on the ocean of life in the boat of the self. And one needs both the compass and the rudder. Only when these two are together, they help to serve the dual purpose of keeping oneself afloat and to take us to the other shore. You require to be in the world, but not of the world. One needs to survive in this world. One needs to take care of one's body. One needs to take care of the requirements of the body. See, there is an interesting story in the Mundakopanishad. In fact, the Mundakopanishad starts with this mantra, wherein there is this rishi called Shaunaka. He is the Mahashala. Mahashala is a title which is the equivalent of the chancellor of a university. And a person is called Mahashala only if there are a minimum of 10,000 students in that university. We don't find such universities even now with that strength. In fact, one of the descriptions, a commentary says that there were about 80,000 students when Shaunaka was the Mahashala. Now, another great saint, great rishi, Angirasa, he comes to the place where Shaunaka is running his university. Then very cordially, in a befitting manner, Shaunaka receives Angirasa and puts a very fundamental question to him. Kasminnu bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati iti. Oh great sir, tell me what is it by knowing which everything else becomes known. Kasminnu bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati. Everything becomes known. I want to know that one thing. Then Angirasa replies, Tasmai sahovacha dve vidye veditavye. There are two vidyas one needs to acquire or know. Hasma yad brahmavido vadanti paracha aparachaiva. There are two vidyas. One is the paravidya, the other is the aparavidya. Aparavidya refers to mundane, worldly knowledge. Paravidya refers to that transcendental wisdom. As I said, we need to be in this world, live in this world, and take care of our body, mind, and intellect, and the whole constitution, the whole system that is given to us. So you need to know aparavidya, the worldly wisdom, worldly knowledge, or the mundane knowledge is also required. But at the same time, one needs to cross this ocean in this boat of life, the boat of self, the ocean of life, for which you require the transcendental wisdom. The former, the mundane knowledge is to keep oneself afloat. And the latter, the transcendental wisdom, is to take oneself to the other shore. Apparently, the ocean appears to be such that you can't see the other shore at all. Unless you traverse a long distance, then you see land somewhere. That may not necessarily be the other shore. It could be a small island only. But then again, the allegory says, going to the other shore. That means leaving all that is material behind you and understanding and recognizing and realizing that principle, that eternal, immutable principle. That's the other shore. So we need to move in that direction. So both the vidyas are required. Very interestingly, the Mundaka Upanishad says, all the Vedas and Vedangas are also mundane knowledge only. They don't give it a transcendental status. Because anything that can be known by the mind is something which is limited. Anything that is available to you in the form of some book or some knowledge, recognizable, or that which can be acquired by the mind, can only be mundane knowledge. So what you derive from that should be transcendental in nature. But the scripture per se is only mundane. Your understanding of it and what you derive from it, that becomes your own, that becomes the source of your, the way towards the transcendental wisdom. So you see, this is the point which we need to understand very carefully. Now, there is another very important aspect which I want to touch upon, is that all cultures, all religions, all scriptures talk about strengthening this moral fiber. Again, coming back to our symbolism of the compass. The strengthening the moral fiber is a prerequisite in all disciplines, across cultures, across religions, for any spiritual attainment. For instance, Vedanta talks about sadhana chatushtaya, viveka, vairagya, shatsampatti, and mumukshutva. I'll not go much deeper into these things. I'm just giving you a flavor of it. so that you understand that across cultures and religions, you have this principle of the prerequisite of strengthening one's own moral fiber. For instance, Patanjali Yoga Sutras talks about yama and niyama, vows and observances. He talks about 5 vows. Ahimsa, Satya, Steya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha, Yamaha. Shaucha, Santosha, Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishvara, Pranidhanani, Niyamaha. The first 5 are vows, vows of non-violence, vows of truth, vows of non-covetousness or non-stealing. And similarly, the vows of purity and celibacy. And then he talks about utter external and internal cleanliness, a state of contentment, austerity, self-study, and surrender to that principle which we call as Ishvara, surrender to that eternal principle who is guiding the whole creation. In fact, the 5 vows which I have mentioned from the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, you find the same terminology used by the Jaina philosophical system also. Apart from that, the Jaina philosophical system talks about 3 very interesting and important aspects. It talks about right vision or right perception, and then right knowledge and right conduct. Samyak darshana, samyak jnana, and samyak charitra. The right vision, the right perception, that gives you the right knowledge. And that right knowledge will spur you to act in the right manner, will guide your conduct, your character. This is from the Tattvartha Sutras, written by one Umaswami, almost more than 2000 years ago, where he says these 3 are the gateway to liberation, emancipation, moksha marga. These are all like different pointers on the compass, the moral compass. Now, when it comes to the Buddhist philosophical system, it talks about 6 perfections: Dana, Shila, Kshanti, Virya, Dhyana, and Prajna. Dana is that quality of generosity. Shila is character or morality, ethics. Kshanti is patience. Virya is vigor. Dhyana is meditation, and Prajna is wisdom. In fact, the Buddha had given the 8-fold noble path. Wherein he talks about right kind of living, right kind of livelihood also. I would not like to go much deeper into all these aspects. I'm giving you a flavor of what all cultures, especially those which are very much alive in our country, talk about the strengthening of the moral fiber, and says that all these are prerequisites before you undertake any spiritual journey. Now, the big question comes, why is it that the compass is broken and the rudder is lost? I'll come to my title, the title of my talk. Can I take another 5 minutes? 5 to 10 minutes at the most. I'll try to wind it up. Now, the problem is, if you see, I identify this as the lure of the seen and the illusion of the unseen. We are so much enamored, so much enthralled, so much in the trap of the seen. This seems to be so tangible, so important, that the unseen aspect, what I have talked about earlier in terms of the principle operating through us, the consciousness, that appears to be an illusion. See, completely reversed. The compass is showing all wrong directions. A very, I remember somewhere reading it somewhere where, a boy who's quite naughty, he goes into an antique shop and he simply replaces all the price tags. Something which originally was meant for a lakh of rupees, he puts a 10 rupee tag on that and takes his 1 lakh and puts it on a useless thing. So he completely jumbles and mixes up all the price tags. In fact, our life is like that. We have mixed up all these price tags and put a very high price on something which is absolutely useless, which is absolutely perishable, which is not going to last even for our own lifetime. Whether it be material things, whether it be relationships, whether it be the things which we give importance to at one point of time in our life. Later on, we laugh at it and say, why was I so tensed up and so I thought that was a life and death issue for me, passing the SSC examination at that time. It was everything for me. But when I look back after 50 years, I see that I don't know whether it has really served any purpose or not. So we have jumbled, mixed up all these price tags. And the lure of the seen. What is it that we are lured? The first thing is the immediacy of it. It is something which is readily seen and available to me. And the strong desire for material enjoyment and self-gratification. But if you have the right perception, right vision, one can very easily see through the whole farce of it. The two, I would say, the only two factors which govern every aspect of our life are greed and fear. Greed and fear. It may appear to be something somewhat a kind of an exaggerated or extremist view of it, but if one is candid, one is brutally honest with oneself, one can see that these are the two factors which rule us in our daily life. As I mentioned earlier, we have stifled the small voice of our conscience and are totally oblivious of the presence of any eternal principle in us. And mind you, right at the beginning, I told you, one of the important elements of the moral compass is taking total responsibility for oneself. Not only for oneself, but taking total responsibility. And I would say that we as elders are to be blamed for the present state of so much of chaos and confusion around us. Because day in and day out, we indulge in activities we consider to be the current fad or the in thing to do. And the three most important things which engage most of our time is gossip, politics, and entertainment. These are actually our full-time engagement. We have lost the important elements of our life like silence, contemplation, and giving that inner space, creating that inner space for the blossoming of love and compassion. They seem to be totally alien to us. Now, the whole point is, I am not excluding myself. I am the first one in this line, and I would blame myself. Because we may talk about them, we may discuss about them, we may go into the nuances and subtleties of the so-called spiritual life and all that, and what is there in the various scriptures and readings and books and whatnot. But we never live it on a day-to-day basis. We never live it on a day-to-day basis. That is where it is lost. In fact, when I was thinking of this topic, one thing that struck me hard was that perhaps we are the last and the lost generation. I'm talking about those of my age, maybe who are in their middle ages, 50s and 60s and 70s and so on. We are the last and the lost generation because we are the last connecting link with the true tradition which our ancestors, which our elders represented. And we are the lost generation, L-O-S-T, lost generation, because we have not passed on the baton to the next generation. We failed to pass on the baton to the next generation. So unless we hold, unless we uphold, unless we sustain and nourish that dharma, we have failed in our duty that way. I can quote several scriptures, but that's of no consequence. I can quote the Bhagavad Gita, the 18th chapter enumerates several qualities and virtues according to one's own roles and responsibilities in life. But I think this should be a wake-up call to us, where we need to take a sankalpa, as Vijay Lakshmi ji was mentioning I'm reminded of that word. A strong will is to be exercised. And we take the sankalpa that let each one of us fix the broken moral compass by listening to our own conscience and find the lost spiritual rudder by living our daily life in the light of that consciousness. So unless we fix the broken compass and find the lost rudder, I think our life would not be of any great value or meaning, neither to us nor to the world at large. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening to me patiently. I would like to end at that note. And if there are any points or for discussion, I won't say questions and answers, but points for discussion, we can take it up.
I have two clarifications.
Yes, sir.
One is related to your talk, which was very good, of course. And coming from an aircraft background, I really liked Rudder and compass. And
Yeah.
It will be permanently imprinted in my mind. My first clarification is in chapter 7, you touched upon that, but in your talk, there is something Krishna says in verse 2, Vijnanam,
Yes.
the divine knowledge. One has to acquire theoretical knowledge and the divine knowledge. So can
Yeah.
you tell something more about that in this context? What exactly is Vijnanam?
The Adi Shankara defines these two terms in his commentary. He says, Jnana refers to knowledge acquired through the scriptures. And Vijnana refers to that wisdom which one acquires, which is beyond the knowledge of the scriptures. He makes the difference between Jnana and Vijnana. And in the 7th chapter, as you said, it talks about, Krishna says that I am going to give you both, which will make you, you don't require anything else other than these two. So
how to acquire this wisdom? That is my question. Because
No,
even Bible talks about wisdom. Every scripture talks about wisdom. So what exactly is this wisdom?
Recognizing that the eternal principle in oneself is that wisdom.
It is better. Recognizing the
presence of that eternal principle
within oneself is the wisdom. Oh, that is
wisdom.
perfect. Thank you. So that really helps.
Right.
My second clarification is, it is said that rudder and compass, people are born with rudder and compass.
Yes.
Or some people acquire rudder and compass. But there are many people never acquire, or they are not. What is the reason for not having rudder? Now what is happening in the country? We have all read in the paper, particularly in Northeast. There is no rudder, there is no compass, there is nothing.
It is happening
how anybody
everywhere.
can solve that problem?
No, it is happening everywhere. The point is very simple. As I said, we have stifled the voice of the conscience, voice of our own conscience. The compass is broken, or sometimes we willfully break it. That is one thing. See, we are all born with that. See, the ancient Indian scriptures say that essentially we are divine beings. One of the beautiful statements of the Upanishad says, Amritasya putraha. We are all children of that immortality, children of the immortal. So there is that immortal principle in us. Now, the fact that we don't recognize it and we don't want to recognize it, and there is actually a statement which says that none are so blind as those who will not see. I don't want to see. Can there be a person who is more blind than me when I refuse to see, when I refuse to open my eyes? So the problem is that these principles are there already, but we don't give that space for their blossoming, their coming forth, their recognition. Because most of the times it is inconvenient for us. If we go by the conscience, we can't do most of the things which we very casually do. Isn't it? And I behave as though that I am going to be eternal. In the Mahabharata, there is this, the Yaksha Prashnas are there. The dialogue between the Yaksha and Dharmaraja or Yudhishthira. I'm not going to the story, but basically the first question which the Yaksha puts is, what is the most strangest thing which you see in this world? Then Yudhishthira says, we see death around us day in and day out. But when it comes to oneself, one thinks one is immortal. Otherwise, see, why would we behave like this? Acquiring things. That's why it is said, if you want to become knowledgeable, acquire something every day. But if you want to become wise, you drop something every day. We don't drop, we acquire. We thrive in possessing things which are of no use, which we don't use also. We don't let go of small things in our house. In fact, that's what my wife complains about me also. You keep all these old things there. You neither give it to somebody nor use it. Recently, I was forced to do that because she said, I can't take it anymore. It's a callousness, laziness. So we do it, thinking that I am going to be there permanently. So we have to come to this. As I said, one needs to fix this broken compass. One needs to find that spiritual rudder. Unless we recognize, we see the functionality of conscience and consciousness in us very clearly, nothing is going to come about. No, there won't be much change in our life. If we look back and see what is the great transformation that has happened in me, nothing. No, nothing of any great significance. What did I do? I did the same things that the world did. Was born, educated, got a job, got married, have children, now have grandchildren also, have become old. And the cycle goes on. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani, jathare shayanam, he says. You again go back into the womb. Then come again and do the same things again. At some point, one has to come to this. Otherwise, the whole life is a waste. See, the great Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad very clearly says, if you do not know this imperishable while you are alive, and you die anyway, you would be dying the life of a miserable wretch. Krupana is the term that is used. Yova etadaksharam aviditva praiti sa krupanaha. He says, one who dies without knowing this imperishable, the akshara, such a person is a miserable wretch. And on the other hand, if you know this akshara, if you realize this akshara, then also you're going to die. That's a different matter. The physical body is not going to be there anyway. So, but having known this imperishable, then you become a Brahmana, he says. That is the true definition of a Brahmana. That's the difference between a Krupana and a Brahmana. It has nothing to do with caste or community or birth or anything of that matter. Because if you know the Brahman, the ultimate reality, that eternal principle, that will make you that. See, a scientist who studies physics doesn't become physics. A chemistry professor does not become chemistry. But the beauty of this transcendental wisdom is that the knower of the Brahman becomes Brahman. Brahmavid Brahmaiva bhavati. The Brahmavid, the knower of the Brahman, becomes the Brahman. That is the beauty of it. That is the beauty of this which is imperishable. One has to give that inner space for that to come about. I'm all cluttered. I'm all chaotic inside. Then where is the space for me to create that space, create that time to realize that the compass is broken and the rudder is lost? I don't even know, as you said, as you rightly said, most of the people don't even know. They don't even know that there is a spiritual rudder. There is that sense of, the great sense of that consciousness functioning as the life principle, as the prana in us. And most of us have very conveniently killed conscience, because it's very uncomfortable and inconvenient to live in this world with a conscience. Maybe some of them, as we grow old, we can recognize it because we don't contribute much to the world, and the world doesn't recognize us much. But if you are quite young and active in this world, if you allow your conscience to prick you every time, you will all be with puncture holes only, full of punctured holes. So some point of time, one has to come to this. There is no other path to go. Nanyah pantha ayanaya vidyate. The Veda says that also. There is no other path to go. You think you can escape it? No, you can't. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Krishnaphani.
Thank you, Janaki Ramji. Anybody else would like to contribute or give their response?
Krishnaphani ji, you said that, we are talking of strengthening our moral compass, but
Moral fiber, yeah.
Moral fiber. But the fact is, I think that we all have the strong moral fiber, we don't recognize it.
No, what happens is, there is this use and disuse thing. If you don't use it, it becomes weak.
Okay.
Like the muscles in the body.
Okay.
There has to be a conscious effort to hold on to these principles. You understand the point?
Yeah, I get.
So that's the reason why they have reiterated so many times and said, yes, hold on to these vows. Take a vow that you're not going to do these things. And the observances that which you are going to do, the do's and don'ts, are important in the sense that we have let go of things. We have let go of things. So it is important to strengthen the moral fiber.
Okay. Got it.
I am just reading a comment by Sneha Devanandan. Thank you so much, madam. Thank you to see that you are here. Yeah, anybody else would like to say?
Krishnaphani,
Yes,
good evening, sir.
Arunji, boliye.
You see, I think from what I could make out from your talk, sir, is that we have to be conscious of our mortality. There's a mortality of the body, and try and see that how we can distance our own self from this body-mind complex. And if we are able to do that, and I think conduct ourselves by what they say in 3 small sentences: do good, see good, be good. I think that's all that is required. But the very basic thing, as you said, the most difficult thing is to be conscious that you are not going to be in this body forever. We all think that we'll be everlasting. This life will go on and we can do whatever we like. But no, we must be conscious that we have to say Tata one day. Sooner or later, we don't know when.
But we are so very willing to give up. Not very willing
to let go. Yes.
More importantly, I agree with you, but I am trying to just put the things in perspective in the sense to see good, do good, and be good. These sentences seem to be very innocuous and very easy and nothing difficult about it. But the fact of the matter is, why we don't do this is because we don't recognize those 2 principles in us and don't live by them. If I live by my conscience and my consciousness, I need not very specifically focus on seeing good, doing good, or being good. I will automatically be that.
Quite right, sir. Yeah, understand.
So that is what I am trying to project. What you say is
I got
correct.
that, sir.
But got to prioritize this. Unless I prioritize this, I can't see good. I can't do good. Because
I
every
can't be
time
good.
something, yeah, I can't be, something else comes in between.
Right.
It seems to be more important to me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's the reason why I also mentioned about the aspect of immediacy and material enjoyment and self-gratification. They become important. If something immediately, something happening close to me, then I give first priority to that. Knowing very well that I can't do much about it also. Now look at things, sir, in our relationships we find that I want to advise my son, but he won't listen to me. What am I supposed to do? Don't do anything. But that seems so important to me, so immediate to me. What I can see, he doesn't see. And there is an element of selfishness in me.
We want them to be like us, which we.
No, not like us. At least I say, don't do the same mistakes which I did. But that's not the point. That's what I'm saying. See, the immediacy of it, the holding on to things merely for holding on.
Not letting go.
The very holding gives you a pleasure. And there is this element of self-gratification. And every time I am the lurking fear in me of uncertainty. So how do I come out of it? Unless I recognize that there is an eternal principle, and it is that which I need to hold on to and not this.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to emphasize upon.
That's inner knowledge of the eternal principle, right? We are part of the eternal consciousness in a continuum, and these
Yes.
bodies will come and go.
Yeah.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir.
And it is not, and at the same time, don't misuse the body, don't abuse the body. The body is a very precious instrument, a very sensitive instrument. See, the only two instruments which are available to us, the body and the mind, we have thoroughly misused them.
Oh, this question by Arun Bagra triggered a thought in me. We all know that our identity continues.
Yes.
That is very important aspect.
I have to be conscious of it, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Arun Bagra in a different name and form, like I'll be John Ikram in a different name and form, but our identity, our consciousness continues.
Yeah.
So that is the reason to develop the consciousness. Somebody put, don't piss in the pool.
Hold on to us. Hold on
Don't
to that.
urinate on the pool. Somebody put it. So that is what many people are doing by doing bad thoughts in the consciousness. There is a collective consciousness.
Yeah. Consciousness is one.
The I in me and the you in you are the same, sir.
Yeah, the consciousness,
there is no plural.
There is no plural to the term consciousness.
Right.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? I would like more.
No, what I meant is individual consciousness varies. No, that is the problem.
Yeah. That is anyway because we are entangled in matter. Anybody else would like to say something? Dr. Sana? Sarangi ji, I see Sarangi ji also. Very nice to see all our old friends.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarangi ji. So, Dr. Sana, yeah, nice to see you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Wonderful. I tell you, every word has such a profound meaning. I think we need to reflect on these most important salient points. Since we don't dwell on this, some of these things are taken for granted. We live lesser life. That's what I feel.
Yes.
We are most of the time are living lesser life, though divinity has given us such profound qualities, profound beautiful things. We don't dwell on that. Only in a meeting like this, we talk about it and we discuss. But when it comes to our day-to-day vyavahara, in
Yeah.
transactions, that's where the test lies.
Absolutely.
Uh,
You are
uh,
absolutely
and
right.
that way, the world has become so greedy that nobody thinks of other.
Dr.
Say,
Sana,
ah,
please remember that we are a part of the world. We are not different from the world. We are
yeah,
contributors to the whole mess.
yes, yes. So, when,
That's why
uh,
I am reminded of Krishnaji. Vidu
the,
Krishnamurti used to say that
mm,
we lack that tremendous energy and passion for life.
mm.
We don't live life fully.
Yeah,
We
that's
are
what.
stuck in a small corner of this vastness.
Yeah, that is true. That is very much true. Now,
So,
this realization is very, very important, I tell you. In
yeah.
fact, our meditation should be to focus on our own qualities and trying to use it for our betterment and betterment of the people around and the whole world. That should be our
Yeah.
endeavor.
That's the reason why I have used 3 terms. We need not do anything drastic also.
Mm.
As I said, silence, contemplation, and creation of that inner space for the blossoming of love and compassion.
Yeah,
These
true,
are
very
things,
much.
wherever we are, we can do it. But we don't want to do it. We are not, the mind is continuously chattering and chattering. And the things have added to the confusion. All these social media applications and whatnot. So they are only creating more and more confusion, chaos,
Yeah.
more and more shattering.
And one strange thing is this social media, the entertainment, the film industry, they are focusing more on negativity. In fact, every hero would like to act like a villain nowadays, and they set a role model to the youngsters.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the prominent heroes in Kannada industry said, "I am not a human, I am a devil," he said the other day.
Well, the point is very simple, sir.
Uh,
2.5 hours you show him as a villain, and
yeah,
last 5 minutes you show him as doing something good, and you
yeah,
want people to remember the last 5 minutes, they will never remember.
never, never. This is unfortunate.
No, see, I challenged many youngsters,
Mm.
said, including my son, I said, let us not talk about people, politics, and movies.
Yeah, very dangerous.
Is there anything to discuss?
Input.
After 1 minute, he is confused. He doesn't have anything to discuss.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And we'll have to shut these inputs, I tell you.
That is what is happening. We are
Yeah,
also stuck in that same thing.
yeah, that is
So
true.
it should be a wake up call to everyone. I am no exception because I am speaking about it. I am no exception. I might have given some thought to it,
Mm.
but
And
that's all.
yeah, now you said about broken compass, we are destroying. Nobody wants to have that kind of a
No compass.
compass. We are destroying.
Throw away
Anyway, it's a
both the
wonderful,
compass and the rudder.
yeah, gone like anything.
As I
And the
said,
other, yeah, it's a wonderful listening to you, sir. It's a wonderful awareness. We need
thank
to
you.
revive every minute, every breath we need to revise. Otherwise, we tend to go astray.
Yeah.
And definitely, there is no way of return to our true self. Thank you very much, sir. God bless.
Thank you.
All of
Thank you,
us, we are so
Sanajay.
lucky.
Thank you.
Wonderful, sir.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Malti ji. Thank you for your comment. If there is nobody else, I think it's already.
Namaskar, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How are you, sir?
Fine.
Sir, the example
You have to put your this thing remove that speaker.
No, it is,
Speaker seems to be on. That's why it's echoing.
it's not there, sir.
Now it is okay. Tell me.
The example you have picked up, the compass and rudder, is really wonderful. After being with you for many years and in the spiritual path, actually for us, satsang is the compass and rudder is not broken, Sarji. It is only requires maintenance time to time. And you picked up the example of the ship, which has to float and also reach to the shore. But as long as you are floating at sea, I mean, my friend Sarangi will agree with me, you cannot align the compass because it requires a stable platform. Similarly, if I wanted to paint the rudder, I need a dry docking where I have to clean it and put it back. Now, this time to time exercise, the ships, we take it in the dry dock and align the compasses with the weapon systems, radar, etc. And also the rudder is cleaned up and then, painted and all that. So your talk is something like putting us in the dry dock and getting the compass and the rudder all repaired.
Ramji,
And yes, Sajid, to that extent, I thank you so much.
The only point I'm trying to make is,
Yes.
you are talking about being in the Navy, Indian Navy, you are talking about big ships and all. I am talking about the boat of the self on the ocean of life.
It is synonymous.
That's where you require both these things and some sails also.
Yes.
And maybe large ships and all, big vessels and all, they have a gyroscope.
Yes. Alignment
so
and all.
They have so many other equipment for alignment, and now it's all electronic.
Yes.
So
no, the point I'm saying is, sir, it requires a dry docking without any movement if you wanted to align everything.
You are coming to my point of silence and contemplation.
That place is that when we are listening to your talk, time to time.
Dry docking is that silence and contemplation.
Exactly. So that is what whenever your session is something like that. Okay. So that we can recap, realign, repair, and then come back. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Reshmi,
Yes,
anybody else, or shall we? It's already nearing 8:25.
I would like to thank all our participants for your valuable presence this evening. At Rtambhara, we look forward to your presence on Select Fridays, where we bring to you interesting topics on holistic wellness and the arts, delivered by a host of distinguished, knowledgeable speakers. The upcoming program details will be posted on our WhatsApp groups and social media platforms. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Krishnaphani ji. Namaste.
Thank you so much. Thank you.